In Papua New Guinea, the very ground beneath your feet tells a really complex story. It's a tale of ancient tradition meeting modern commerce, and it's all defined by two totally different and, well, starkly unequal types of land. If you can understand this divide, you're on your way to understanding the nation itself.
Okay, just try to wrap your head around this. Imagine a country where a staggering 97% of all the land isn't governed by modern laws, but by ancient traditions. I mean, that's the reality in Papua New Guinea. This customary land just dominates the entire landscape. And that other little sliver, just 3%, is what's called alienated land. And that's where pretty much all commercial and foreign investment happens. This incredible imbalance, well, it shapes everything.
So here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the two land systems. Then we'll do a deep dive into what customary land really means and compare that with alienated land. After that, we'll check out the formal registration process before we pull it all together and see why this whole unique setup matters so much.
All right, first up, PNG's two land systems. Let's get right to the heart of that fundamental 97-3 divide that really defines the entire nation.
Let's start with the giant slice of the pie, shall we? What exactly is this customary land that makes up almost the entire country?
The best way to think about customary land is that it's governed by living history, not some government database. Ownership isn't about a piece of paper in a file somewhere. It's all rooted in these deep ancestral connections and clan relationships that go back generations. It's about who has always used the land, lived on it, and belonged to it.
You know, this system is incredibly flexible, and it's super localized. There isn't just one set of rules for the whole country. The law of the land, so to speak, can literally change from one valley to the next because it's all based on the unique customs of the specific clans who live right there.
So this raises a huge practical question for any outsider, right? Whether you're a developer or an investor, if 97% of the land is basically off the formal market, how on earth do you even begin a project?
Well, the short answer is you can't, not directly. A foreign investor is actually prohibited from buying or leasing customary land straight from its traditional owners. The only way it works is for the government to step in and act as a kind of middleman. The state has to acquire the land first, and only then can it be leased out for development.
Okay, let's flip to the other side of the coin, that tiny but absolutely crucial 3%. This is what's known as alienated land.
Alienated land is pretty much what it sounds like. It's land that's been formally removed from that customary system. The government has stepped in, acquired it from its traditional owners, and set it aside specifically for things like public works or private development. This is the turf where most of the country's commercial activity happens.
Now, even within this tiny 3%, there are two different types. You've got freehold, where you own the land outright, but that's really, really rare. What's much more common is leasehold, where land is leased from the state for a set amount of time. And that is the standard model for almost any commercial venture in Papua New Guinea.
So, if you're dealing with this 3% of alienated land, how does it all actually work? Well, that brings us to the formal land registration process. Now, this is in complete and total contrast to the customary system. Alienated land is highly structured. It uses something called a torrents-type system. Just think of it like a master ledger, a big official book held by the government where every single entry is the final, undeniable proof of who owns or has rights to a piece of land. And as our source material from the legal experts at Denton's points out, this system is absolutely what provides security and clarity. It's what turns a piece of land into a predictable, legally defined asset that you can securely buy, sell, or even mortgage. So what's actually in this register? Well, basically everything you'd need for a secure deal. It's got the original certificate of title, the precise boundaries of the land, who currently owns or leases it, and any other claims on it like subleases or mortgages. It's the one single source of truth.
But there's one final hurdle in this process. Even with a clear title, you can't just transfer a state lease automatically. It often requires direct approval from the Minister for Lands. This adds a pretty significant layer of government oversight, and it's especially critical for any foreign company or person to know about.
Okay, we've looked at the two systems, the formal process. So what's the big takeaway? Why is this incredibly unique structure so important to grasp?
When you put them side by side, the contrast is just stark. On one hand, you have customary land. It's clan-owned, it's unregistered, it covers nearly the entire country, and it's only accessible to foreigners indirectly through the government. And on the other hand, you've got alienated land, a tiny, formally registered fraction where the modern economy and foreign investment can actually operate directly. It's really like two different worlds existing right next to each other.
And this quote from our source really brings it all home. Despite making up only 3% of the land mass, alienated land is where nearly all foreign investment is concentrated. So understanding this tiny slice of the pie is absolutely critical for anyone looking at the economic future of Papua New Guinea.
And this leaves us with a really profound question. How will an ancient, community-based tradition that covers 97% of a nation continue to coexist and interact with a modern, state-run system on that remaining 3%? The answer to that is going to define the future of development in Papua New Guinea, and it really sits at the very heart of the country's journey forward.